and good evening, everybody. Welcome to the News Podcast Sunday live show on Discord. You're listening to the voice of Nick Draper. I'm joined this evening by George Jones. Say hello, George.
Hello, how are you doing, Nick?
I'm not too bad, George. I'm a little bit tired this evening. It's been a long day at the end of a long week. How are you?
I am not bad, but for reasons we'll go into later, I could be better after yesterday's game.
Well, yes, we will be talking about the defeat to Accrington yesterday. So, George, you've mentioned it there. We had the 2-1 defeat to Accrington at the Kai and Prince Foundation Stadium yesterday, the artist formerly known as Loftus Road. And it was a bit of a bump back down to earth, wasn't it, after a very positive start to the season, our first defeat in the league. We should have seen it coming, really, especially given our record against Accrington, playoff semi-final aside, isn't actually the best.
No, it's not. It's one of those where they are a typical bogey team for us. We never seem to do very well against them. It was a match, like you said, where it's the typical standard game where we lose. Where we've had a good run of form. We've got a very unexpected win against a good Fleetwood side the week before. We get some great news in the week regarding, the new ground and a completion date for that. And to go for all of that going into a game which should have been winnable. It's such a Wimbledon thing for us to then lose it in a bad way, because Fleetwood seemed like huge amounts of progress. It looked like we'd cut out the individual errors. It was such a step up on the defensive performance that we saw against Plymouth, and then watching us against Accrington yesterday, it was so similar to Plymouth. It was defensively we didn't look entirely stable, whereas we looked rock solid against Fleetwood. We were just flat yesterday. I don't think we ever really got going. We got an early goal, which was thanks to Ryan Longman's sort of striker's instinct, getting onto the end and finishing off a chance that Piggott had hit the post with. It was we just never really got going. It was a flat performance in a day where the game was there for the taking, sadly.
That was George Jones talking about completion and Longman finishing off Piggott. Matt, have you joined us?
Yes, I have. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there we go. Hello, Matt. Matt, we hear you've had quite the day.
Oh, yeah. Lovely trip to the park, and then my 19-month-old son fell over, and then a lovely trip to A&E to get his forehead glued because he cut it. So yes, it's been a long one. I feel quite tired, but having the distraction of football is a good thing.
You say a good thing. Did you watch the game yesterday on iFollow?
I did.
Oh, before we get into this, sorry. George has done quite a nice summary already of the game itself. And how have I not mentioned iFollow yet? Never again. I had so many issues. And yes, I have my own issues with my Wi-Fi, which was doubly frustrating, but more actually after the game had finished. But during the game, that audio for a start, what was going on? I had to listen to the Accrington commentary just because the buzzing on the line was not as bad as it was on our one. It was still awful. And then for the first 5 minutes of the second half, there was just no coverage whatsoever. Did you have that same problem?
Yeah, the buzzing was. It sounded like it was being played on a 70s record player. It was quite bad. But I mean, the cutout footage was ridiculous. And it happens too often, and iFollow has always done it and always seems to get away with it. But luckily, I didn't have the obvious Wi-Fi problems that you were having with a certain unnamed internet company.
Yes, we won't mention the company involved at all, Virgin Media, but you suck. And you suck so bad, ruining my life. That might be a little bit of an exaggeration. The buzzing was very irritating. It was like watching. You remember those old UEFA Cup ties you used to get on a Tuesday evening when an English team would go abroad somewhere in Eastern Europe, Yugoslavia, Russia, but like Dynamo Moscow away, and it would sound like it was done over some telephone line. That's what it sounds like at the moment. Very, very frustrating. But anyway, my original question, Matt, was did you watch the game? Yes, you did. George has mentioned that perhaps we got a little bit complacent. We took the lead and things were a little bit maybe too comfortable for us, and then we couldn't lift it once Accrington had got level.
I thought he was a bit flat from us. Too many players having an off day. I thought I wasn't expecting us to start. I mean, I know they always say don't change a winning team. I didn't honestly expect us to start with the same team that we did against Fleetwood. I thought we'd go a bit more gung ho like we did against Plymouth, but obviously the capitulation with the two goals and almost nearly losing at the end probably put pay to that, and the fact that we won at Fleetwood. But I think we've got to have the ability or learn the ability to set up differently against different opponents, because you could see. I mean, I said on I think it was last week. Never discount John Coleman. He's a wily old fox, and he set his team up to nullify what he already knew that he did. He'd obviously done his homework, and they played a certain style, and at times I would describe it as Wickham-esque, but it worked.
I think the interesting point for me when you say about changing the lineup and then the formation change is, again, as we've been speaking about on the podcast, the three in midfield, and we went with Jacko Oksanen more holding midfield role as opposed to putting Chislett in a more attacking position. George, were you surprised that we didn't bring Chislett back in? Do you think Glyn was hoping to repeat that defensive solidity that we had against Fleetwood, not realising that Accrington was going to be a different game in which we'd be more expected to take the game to them as opposed to sit back and try and catch on the break like we did with Fleetwood?
I'm not surprised that we didn't start with Chislett because Jaakko Oksanen played very, very well at Fleetwood. He was, I think I gave him my man of the match up there, and he had a very solid game, so I'm not surprised that Ethan didn't start ahead of him. I think it was one of those of after you've conceded 4 goals at home and you've thrown away that 2-goal lead, which we did against Plymouth. The next week, the next time you're at home, you can't play the same way, trying to do the same thing, because you can have the same problems. So I'm not surprised he tried to be a bit more solid and try and, no errors, give nothing away, because against Accrington you're going to get a chance or two just because of the sort of standard they have. So I think it was very much a setup for us to try and get a 1-0 or a 2-0 win, rather than for us to go gung-ho and try and get a crazy scoreline like what happened against Plymouth. So I'm not surprised we were set up to be sturdy, because I think Glyn's trying to find that middle ground. We had 1 week where we got it sort of wrong against Plymouth. 1 week we got it wrong. Sorry, we got it perfectly against Fleetwood. And that now we've got it wrong at Accrington. And it's finding that middle ground between that perfect defensive performance that we saw at Fleetwood and the gung-ho that we saw against Plymouth. There is some middle ground there. We haven't quite found it yet. But I'm not surprised we kept with the same team after what was probably our best performance in a couple of years up against Fleetwood.
The big problem yesterday seemed to be when they equalised. And like we say, they got the second goal shortly afterwards, and we couldn't lift it again. But that equalising goal, set piece that we've flapped at, basically. Who takes charge, or who's meant to take charge in that situation? Who of our back three, George, should be the one leading or organising the back line in those situations? Because it didn't seem to be like there was anyone.
No, but I think that's the problem. I mean, we've got Terrell Thomas, who's a lead by example, but not a great, communicator, not, a traditional captain who would be organising. Paul Kalambai is still very young and inexperienced. And Luke O'Neill's not a proper sort of centre-back, not used to organising in that way. So I think it's just in the type of players we've got. Obviously, Connell Truman's still learning in goal. So I think that's the main problem. I think they were all leaving responsibility to each other. It's not like if you had Will Nightingale in there, he would have been communicating and organising. So I think that was the main problem, is there was just no leader in that back 3 or 4 if you include Connell Truman, to just make sure everyone knew what they were doing, to take command of the situation and clear the ball. I mean, the thing that's concerning me more about it is we saw it against Plymouth and we saw it again yesterday, was that we're conceding goals in flurries. We're not conceding a goal here and a goal there. In a couple of minute spells, we're conceding multiple goals. And that's happened a lot this season. And that's going to be what we have to fix, because if we can get through our bad spell, only conceding once, then we still would have the lead against Plymouth. We'd still, be on level terms against Accrington, rather than being drawing and losing those games. So it's more about when things stop going well to bounce up, heads up quickly. And again, I think part of that is coming down to a lack of leadership at the back. And it'll be interesting to see if Will Nightingale comes back in the team for Tuesday night.
Matt, do you think it's a lack of leadership? George says at the back, and I do agree with George in a defensive situation, a lack of leadership in the back three. But you also think in the wider point of us being able to bounce back from conceding a goal, we've got a lack of leadership in the team as a whole. Joe Pigott is our captain. I think he's well liked. He leads by example in terms of currently the effort he's putting in and his work rate, but he's not an organiser. I always find it difficult for a striker to play that sort of role. And I look around the team, who else do you think lends themselves to being an organiser? Woodyard, people would look to. Riley would be looked at as well, but they seem to be more hard-working, energetic players that cover ground more than they are perhaps people that settle others down and get them in position.
Yeah, I mean, O'Neill's probably the most experienced of the back three that we play. TT is good, and I think could become that kind of thing. But I don't think I don't think he's there yet. It's difficult when it comes to the back. I like Will. I'd like to see him come in. To be honest, I'd also like to see O'Neill given a chance at right wing back. McLaughlin's been playing well there, but I think we may be lacking a little bit in experience. We maybe should have an old head at the back potentially. I quite like having a sort of spine of the team that's got a bit of experience. So maybe someone in the defence, someone in the centre of defence, and someone in the centre of midfield, and then in centre forwards. I mean, Piggy's good to have as captain probably because he's well liked by all the lads, but whether he's got the experience to go with that. I mean, is he digging out the defence for going awry for 5 minutes and us letting in 2 goals? No, he probably isn't. But it's those individual mistakes and that concentration that should be there for 90 minutes that is what we're currently missing. And it's George is right that it's those spells where we just lack concentration and the mistakes are made, and suddenly you're 2-3 goals down, and you can't do that in this league. You can't do it in any league, but it's just mistakes are absolutely punished.
George, rumours are about Joe Pigott perhaps making a move. Swansea, Reading are the names in the frame. Do you also think there's a question about our front two, and we scored lots of goals at the start of the season, but second half yesterday, perhaps had Ollie Palmer been fit, his presence would have helped us out in that situation?
Yeah, definitely. I think I said it to Stu, who I was sitting next to yesterday, and we both agreed. Yeah, I was saying that with half an hour to go, the game was calling out for Ollie Palmer. It was calling out for just that different option, that target man. It's just, had he been fit, had we had that outlet, that plan B that Ollie Palmer gives us, I think it might have been a different game. I think we definitely missed that. But, I mean, we said it in the pre-match build-up yesterday. The way Pigott and Longman are linking up is incredible. We got another goal because of the fact those two were... I mean, Pigott technically will get the assist for the goal yesterday. So that's already another one. So he's averaging more than a goal involvement a game at the moment, which is incredible stats for him. It's not a surprise to see championship clubs are circling, considering he's out of contract in the summer, and I think it's worth bearing that in mind with whether this could just be agent talk. But it's definitely an interesting it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks before the 16th of October when the transfer window shuts for EFL clubs, because there's going to be a lot of business to do for a lot of other teams, and sadly we're scoring goals, and that means our strikers are going to be in demand.
Can you talk me through, George, the substitutions yesterday? We had, with 10 minutes to go, Ethan Chislett comes on for Terrell Thomas. We think Terrell picked up a bit of a knock. And that would instigate a formation change. But I'm looking at the lineup, and I can't figure out what we were supposed to do at that point.
So the first sub was Hartigan coming on for Jaakko Oksanen, which seems to be a regular sub for us. And then coming on, Ethan Chislett was actually ready to come on a couple of minutes before Terrell went down for the second time. And it was pretty clear that, from my point of view anyway, that Chislett was going to come on before the decision about whether Thomas had to come off or not was made. So I think that's, I think we were almost forced into that formation change by not wanting to have to, risk Will coming on without having had a proper warm up because of his injury record. So I think we were almost forced into making that formation change and switching to a 4-4-2 diamond. Terrell not injured, by the way. He just had stomach cramps. So that was thankfully it's sort of an illness rather than an injury, so he won't be out for too long, hopefully. The formation change, I think it was more sort of last roll of the dice to see if we can create something. Personally, I would have liked to have seen Ethan Chislett come on maybe 10 minutes earlier, 15 minutes earlier, just to see if he was able to do something to create an opportunity or just a moment of magic, because he nearly scored within 30 seconds of coming on. So I'd have liked to have seen him come on a bit earlier. But thankfully Terrell's injury isn't an injury, if that makes sense.
Yes. What we thought was a knock is not a knock. He just needed to come out for a little bit. Matt, quick question before we wrap up on yesterday. I'm going to give you a number. Can you give me? Oh well, no. I'm going to give you the answer to a question. The answer is a number. Can you tell me what the question is? It's like Jeopardy, just without any of the bells and whistles and any real sense of Jeopardy. The answer is 221. Do you know what the question is?
221. The amount of times we lost possession?
It probably is, to be fair. We'd have to ask our stats person, Lawrence Lone, to help us out with those, but no, it's not that. Any other guesses, George? You got an idea?
Is it days since a home clean sheet?
Oh, that's a good one. We'd have to look into it. I think it's probably not that long, is it?
208 days since our last home clean sheet.
We're with the 0-0 with Bolton, obviously, the last game.
Yes.
Yes, not the answer I was looking for, I'm afraid. 221 is the total of our players' squad numbers in the starting lineup yesterday. That's absurd, isn't it, really? So high.
It's a delayed response to Matt's thing. Yesterday, we lost possession 137 times.
So it wasn't far off, Matt, to be fair. I'm not sure which of those is worse. For me personally, it's the squad number thing. That's much worse. We've got a 30, a 33, a 39, a 42, a 29. Honestly, what is the world coming to?
Whatever happened to 1 to 11?
God, I'd love those days to come back. 1 to 11. Nice and simple. 13 is your goalkeeper. Never mind. So George, as we've said, record against Accrington is not the best. And we can't really have any arguments. Although we did come close to an equaliser. Shane McLaughlin hit the post in the second half with a good shot, but that was about as close as we came. It leaves...
Header.
Oh, whose header? I must have missed it.
In the first half, at the back post, Callum Baye was clean past the goalkeeper. There was the blonde fella for Accrington headed it off the line and ended up falling straight into the net. Otherwise, Callum Baye was just heading it into the goal. It was a brilliant headed clearance off the line. That would have been the first goal for us. And then unfortunately, Callum Baye, if you heard Glyn's interview, was then picking his teeth up because there was a very nasty elbow situation that I cannot believe the referee didn't pull out a red card for.
Poor Callum Baye seems to have gone from 18 to 21 in a space of a few months. He's 21 years of age now. I don't remember him getting. I still view him as like the 18-year-old that came in the first game. But
he did make his first team debut 18 months ago. Well, more than 18 months ago now. 22 months ago. So he's been around in the first team squad for longer than a lot of people realise, I think. Same with Anthony Hartigan, who's been in the first team squad for over 3 years now.
Well, yes, there has been. I'm wondering if Paul Callum Baye could, in a similar vein to what Hartigan has done, just have a little bit of a rest. And I don't know. Would you bring Will in just for a little spell, George, instead of keep putting Callum Baye out there every week?
I don't think so, and I think for reasons I've gone on the various platforms before, I don't think Will can play on the left of a back three. I'm not sure if Terrell Thomas has the physical ability to be the overlapping centre-back that we've seen Paul Kalambai and Luke O'Neill do. So for me personally, I think, I'm not sure Will can come in for Paul Kalambai. I think if Will comes in, it'd have to be for Terrell Thomas. And I think that's what makes it such a difficult decision, because Terrell has played so well for us over the last couple of years since his arrival.
You're the man to answer this question. What are the rules of this silly B-team trophy thing? Do we still have all those laws about having to have X amount of players that played the last or the next game either side of it? Or do we have a lot more freedom to give players a rest on Tuesday, when I believe we have a fixture in this competition?
No, for the rules for Tuesday are sadly pretty much unchanged from last season. So there's 4 players who have played either the previous or the following league game, or have made 40 or more senior first team appearances. So it's fairly laxed. I mean, people like Will Nightingale, Anthony Hartigan, they count as senior players in this competition now. So we can have a fairly rotated squad while still fulfilling the minimum, requirements of a squad depth. The other requirement, I should say, is players on loan from Category 1 academy teams also count as one of the 4. So if Ryan Longman was to play, which is now a bit more likely because Brighton are going to be knocked out of this competition, or if I think actually Longman's our only Category 1 loanee, so if he's allowed to play and would count as one of our 4. So we do have options there to play a heavily rotated squad while still not getting fined.
I don't know about you, Matt. I think it sounds like we need like an accountancy or a maths degree to understand the rules of this competition. They sound so complex and needlessly complicated.
Considering who we're playing, we might need some hazmat suits as well.
Well, this is interesting. That is a good... Well, first of all, I'm going to come back to that in a second, Matt. First of all, George, just say what you're going to say about Tuesday night.
Tuesday night, so we will be the Back to Plough Lane, which broadcasts semi-successfully on Saturday. We will be making our second live official broadcast on the club's official Facebook page on Tuesday night. It's a 7 p.m. kickoff, so we will precede the iFollow live coverage from about 6:30 live on the club's Facebook page, and we will be live again at full time, answering various questions and talking about the game.
Thank you very much. Now, Matt, your comment about the hazmat suits, because Leyton Orient had positive coronavirus tests a couple of weeks ago. It led to their game with Tottenham being abandoned completely, and they forfeited the tie. Yesterday in League One, Crewe Alexandra turned up at the Kassam Stadium for their fixture at Oxford United, and a player was found to have tested positive as well. So the game had to be called off at, George informs me, 2:31 p.m. This is a problem, is it not, Matt, for every single game, every single fixture? Because this could happen at any time, we don't know when, leading to postponements, leading to further fixture congestion. It's a bit of a pain in the backside, isn't it?
Hugely. And if they only found out literally when they got to the ground, when are the tests being done? Surely they're being done in the week, so you're clear before the game. So surely you know by the Friday. I mean, how does it get to that late before you know the result of the test?
I think what happened was they had a player who was, I believe, symptomatic earlier in the week, who he had a test earlier in the week. He didn't travel with the squad on the Friday before the game. But then on Saturday morning, one of the players who did travel was symptomatic. So as a result of the previous positive test, it was sort of deemed an assumed positive. So therefore, they were unable to fulfill the fixture, according to their statement anyway.
And assumed positive in the fact that it's got a bit cold, so he had a snivel.
I think it means because he's been in close contact, he's showing symptoms, and he's been in contact with someone who's tested positive. I think it means they have to assume it's positive until they're, given a negative test.
Assumed positive. This could be a new thing in life, couldn't it? I mean, we couldn't do a driving test. We just assumed that you could have passed it. or I mean, it'd be like giving out exam results without seeing. Never mind. Let's move on. In League One, elsewhere, as I said, we now stand 12th. Do you stand in a league table or do you sit in a league table? George, which do you prefer, sit or stand?
I think you sit in a league table.
Matt, what do you reckon?
I don't know, as long as we're not near the bottom.
I would say you sit in a league table, but they also are sometimes referred to as the standings. So this is a big, important philosophical question that we'll answer at another time when we're not so tired. We're currently 12th, and looking round the division, next week we play Swindon, who are 7th, but they have won 2, lost 2. So it's all very tight. It's just interesting to see teams at top and bottom of this stage. This is really the first opportunity to see what the league table is looking like. And 100% records for Lincoln and Hull in what is bizarre to see them in the same division in the first place. On the 100% record thing, by the way, I did have to laugh because I'm not paying attention to Premier League, but I did hear that Villa won last week. They beat somebody, and it was their second game of the season. And the report on the radio said they maintained their 100% start to the season, which suggests after one game, they were labelling it as a 100% record. I thought, you can't do that. That's ludicrous. But anyway, after 4 games, I think it's fair to say you've got an 100% record. And Lincoln and Hull, Lincoln I'm not surprised at. I thought they'd do well to start the season. Hull were did not know what to expect from them and still don't. But they haven't conceded a goal yet, which is quite something. At the bottom, Burton 3 defeats in 4. And some team from Buckinghamshire, rock bottom, have yet to win a game, but Shrewsbury Town have yet to win a game, but they've got 3 draws, so they're further up the table. But Swindon are who we play next. George, Swindon are a complete mystery to me this season. I don't know what to expect from them. Can you shed any light on them, or are they going to be very much a hit and miss team as their record so far suggests?
I think they are going to be hit and miss. They've had a couple of good results earlier in the season, but they were destroyed yesterday by Peterborough. You look at their squad, they've got a very mixed squad. They've got a couple of really interesting players who, would be suggested to be in the top half. On the other hand, they've got players like Brett Pittman, Paul Caddis, Ziki Friars, who I rate quite highly. So they've got a couple of good quality players in there, but it just doesn't seem to quite click for them this season. So it'll be interesting to see where they end up and where they settle once the season's got going a bit longer. But it's definitely a game where you look at their squad and you think it's a game which is there for the taking. On paper, it's an easier game than Fleetwood, despite Fleetwood's appalling start to the season. But it'll be an interesting test against Swindon because they'll still be on a bit of a high from their promotion last season.
Yeah, got that promotion bounce, which also Plymouth seems to be enjoying at this stage. Crew, not so much. Matt, Swindon Town, Paul Caddis was a name George mentioned there. He must be coming up for a decade now at Swindon Town. It's very unusual that players have that longevity at one club now, especially in the lower leagues.
Very much so. But the other one he mentioned, Brett Pittman, a thorn in our side usually. So not one I look forward to. They seemed. They've got the as you said the promotion bounce, but we just have to go there and see. I disagree with George on one thing. I don't think there's any easy game in this league ever, and especially at the start of the season. But it seems to be with no fans in the grounds. It seems to be the away teams that seem to have more say.
Can I just say on something Nick said? Paul Caddis only joined him in November last year.
Rubbish. Rubbish. I swear he played against us when we were first promoted into the Football League.
He did, and then he left them and has rejoined.
Oh, that makes sense. Fair enough. I was going to say, we drew, I don't know if you remember this, when Paolo Di Canio was in charge, we drew 1-1 at Kings Meadow. Sammy Hatton scuffed a shot and it seemed to bobble about 50 times before it ended up in the goal.
Daisy Cutter, yeah.
Did Jake Jervis play that day? Am I thinking of Jake Jervis? I'm going to investigate this now.
I think he might have.
Jervis was at Swindon around then.
Yeah, I think he might have.
Talk amongst yourselves, listeners, whilst I Google this one. You can probably hear me talking about it. Because,
Well,
I need to
if
find
you
this
wanted
out.
to go, if you wanted to go back to your Aston Villa question, they're currently 5-1 up against Liverpool.
5-1.
Yeah.
Well, this is another thing I was going to ask, which I was going to go on to. Jake Jervis did play that day, by the way, but the equaliser was from Alan Connell, who was the Grimsby player that was scored against us in the conference as well, wasn't it?
Alan Connell, yeah.
Yeah. Villa 5-1 up against Liverpool. This doesn't happen without fans in the stadium, does it, Matt?
No. No,
am-
blatantly not. Absolutely not. There's, I mean, I know Villa are the goes against the grain because Villa are the home team, but this is just like this is the champion Liverpool side. I mean, it's just they're just literally being torn apart.
Villa,
I
who only
think-
stayed up with the dodgy because the goal line technology didn't work.
Yeah, I think changing the topic slightly, but on a similar note, I think the lack of fans in stadium has been pivotal in terms of the result of our first two home games. Because I think you look at it, I spoke to a couple of players after the Plymouth game, and they think they might have been able to hold on if there was a crowd there with a bit more energy. They would have had a bit more momentum, a bit higher tempo that they would have been able to maintain. And yesterday was flat, and you just think if there was a crowd there after a first goal with a good start to the season, would that momentum have come back to us and given us a bit more energy? So I think we are definitely seeing results that are coming about, which wouldn't be there if there were still fans in the stadium.
My dad's just texted me, funnily enough, this very moment with the following: strange scores in the Premier League today, even Fulham lost. Who wants to tell him? My dad being a lifelong Fulham fan, although he did spend many years watching Liverpool when he was at university there, so not a good day for him. Not a great weekend all round, really, although Luton won. Good news, George. Big win for Luton.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't think it's a huge surprise. I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone in the Championship will beat Wickham at least once this season. You worry for them because it's going to be a long, long, long season for Wickham this year in the Championship. They've had an awful start, and you look at it, and if you're Wickham, you're saying Luton, it's a relative local derby. There's a bit of, it's a game where if you're Wickham, you're saying that's a game which could kickstart your season, and to be demolished by a Luton side, which I don't think many. But I don't think pre-season nobody was tipping them for promotion. So I think
not challenging. Do not worry. They have played struggling teams.
I think a lot. I think it's going to be a long season for Wickham, and I think, as we've talked about on the show with Aaron before, I'd be amazed if they don't set a record low points tally for the Championship this season.
In terms of the league table, where Wickham are concerned, it definitely is sitting, not standing, because they cannot stay on their feet for love nor money. So I imagine they will be plummeting again this season. We're going to wrap up quickly. You know this Swindon game I was talking to you about, this 1-1 draw back in 2011? Just as a total aside here, League 2 results that day in the N-Power League 2. Some of these teams and scorelines. So Northampton 2, Shrewsbury 7. But you've also got Dagenham and Redbridge losing at home to Southend, Crawley 4, Oxford 1, Barnet winning at Bristol Rovers, Aldershot was still in the league, Torquay were beating Plymouth 3-1 in a Devon derby. Those were the days. Macclesfield drawing with Accrington Stanley.
I would like to point out that this was 9 years ago, and from 9 years prior to that sort of weekend, we would have been in the combined counties. So just to give you an idea on how much time has passed since, that weekend of fixtures.
What a beautiful way to finish the show, George, on the 9 years tag, as we are the 9 years podcast. Matt, do you want to give a quick prediction for next week's game at Swindon Town at the county ground, unless it's been sponsored and now has a stupid new name?
I will do, and we have had a question, by the way, if anyone has
seen.
Right.
I was just checking, I didn't see any.
Yeah, there is one.
Who's
Nick L.
Hello, Nick. What a stupid name. Who calls themselves Nick? Question. Sorry, I'm looking in the wrong place. This was 20 minutes ago. I do apologise, Nick. This did not come up on my phone. I might be wrong, but I think over half of our goals we conceded from set pieces or soon after them. How do you think we can improve that? George, I guess it comes back to what we were saying earlier. You weren't suggesting a change in the back three, were you? But we need one of those back three to step up and organise, or even the goalkeeper.
Yeah, I think it'd be a bit much to expect from Connell, who's an inexperienced loanee with, about probably 5 now Football League games under his belt. I think it'd be a bit much to expect from him. Paul Kalambai is still the youthful one. So really, I'm looking at Luke O'Neill and Terrell Thomas to step up and be that captain in that back three and organise a things at set pieces to ensure, there's a bit of stability and to make sure everyone knows what they're doing, everyone's got their man, and to try and make us a bit more stable whilst defending set pieces.
And as we were saying, Matt, do you think we're going to improve on that for next week? And do you think we might do a similar thing to what we did at Fleetwood the week last Saturday and keep it tight and frustrate Swindon and maybe nab or nick something on the break?
I think that's exactly what we'll do. I think for an away game, I think that's how we'll do it. Maybe play a bit cagey. I'd like to see maybe it changed up a little bit. I don't know what the answers are for the goals that we're leaking at the moment. Maybe it is time to freshen up the back three, but I'm not. I'd rather keep them. The longer you keep them together, you keep them sort of gelling. There's nothing like playing together to learn each other's strengths and weaknesses, and especially when you're playing a back three. So it'll be a very interesting one. But then all of our games are very interesting.
They are at the moment. George, do you want to give a score prediction?
I think it'll be a tight game at the Energy Check County Ground on Saturday.
Oh my good God!
And I think it'll be a tight game, but I've got a strange feeling it will be a draw. So I'm going to say 2-2.
Fair enough. I've got no point. I've got no idea at this point. I also myself have no point whatsoever. I'm going to have to investigate Swindon team a little bit more and see what I think. Come maybe the podcast, which as it stands will be broadcast live for Patreons on Wednesday. So if you're a Patreon, patreon.com/9 podcast, you can listen to this week's podcast being recorded live on Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. More details to follow on social media over the next few days. That is it for now. George, thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Matt, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
I am shattered, I'm not going to lie. I've got a little bit of work to do this evening, which I'm going to get on with now. But I don't know. Do you know what? I watched a good film today, Matt, and it made me think. Bill Murray was in it, and he's one of my favourite actors, I'd say, of all time. I'm a big fan of his. Lost in Translation, a great film. Ghostbusters original films were amazing, and Groundhog Day is a great film. And Groundhog Day is a great film. So, Matt, have you got a favourite actor?
Favourite actor? Oh, that's difficult. There's loads.
It is. I'm not saying Bill Murray, but he's a favourite.
Bill Murray's great. He can be I quite like Kevin Costner.
Mm-hmm. I watched Field of Dreams the other day. I was very impressed. Matt, George?
Well, great actor, Marcus Madison.
I see what you've done there. Very good. Well, thank you for that, gents. And thank you very much for listening. And we shall be back on Wednesday evening on Patreon and then the podcast again on Friday. And we'll speak to you again on here next Sunday evening. But for now, thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your weekend.